Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Mock Draft Monday in the 2025 off season. It is me, your new host for Mock Draft Monday, Kyler Burd, and I am so happy to be joined once again by my good friend Drew McHorder. How are you, Drew?
I am doing great. I'm excited to be back. Kyler, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be back not on my phone, so hopefully everyone can actually hear me this time instead of trying to struggle and get the audio going. So welcome. I am ready for another mock draft Monday.
Absolutely. It's always good when you get the technical stuff figured out. Then we can just solely focus on the drafts, of which we've got a ton tonight. As we're kind of waiting for everyone to come into the stream tonight, because I don't want anyone to miss us talking about their mock. Um, I thought we would start here at the very top of the show with something that you put together, just some data. On this channel, in the tradition of the professor, our father, we love data. We love to look at football through that lens. So I will go ahead and pull this up, and let me make sure that's bigger for you, and I'll let you go. All right.
Cool. Do you want to back up one actually real quick? Because this was something that if you've got that other slide.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you, sir. This was something that Joe had talked about. He's talked about it frequently on the show, and I remember him mentioning it the last time he was here. But it's the cheat code for offensive linemen. When you kind of look at the short shuttle, everyone, there have been 20 or 24 linemen who have ran the short shuttle at the combine and was it the sub 4.47? Every single one of those offensive linemen ended up starting over 85% of their games in the pros. So it's one of those things where if you see one of those boys doing that at the combine, you're pretty much guaranteed they're going to be a long-term starter. So that got me thinking, what were the numbers this year? And that led me into actually pulling up some of the top short shuttle numbers for the guys this year.
All right, let me get you there.
Thank you. And this is where we're at. So one of the most interesting things I noted is not a single one of them ran that sub 4.47. So one of the things that's been talked about, this is kind of a weaker offensive line class. Data backs it up a little bit. We don't have one single guaranteed 85% starter in the whole group of anybody that we have data on. Now, obviously, there's a couple guys that didn't run it at the combine.
Right.
Right. And there's some who ran it at their pro day, which technically doesn't count. And that was the other one that I noted there because there's been some controversy about him. Emory Jones Jr. out of LSU at one point in his life was projected as a first round pick. And then that didn't really come to fruition throughout the season. But he met the qualifications. He ran the best short shuttle time at a 4.36. So he is an athletic prospect. He's somebody that if you're talking about kicking him inside the guard, he's got that type of athletic profile that you're looking for, especially in our type of system where you're talking about pullers and kicking those guards out. Maybe something to look at.
Yeah, that is interesting, and I think that's a point that's been brought up quite a bit about the relative weakness of this class for that position, just kind of the entire offensive line. Because I'm not really thinking off the top of my head of any interior offensive lineman minus Tyler Booker that's really like possibly a first rounder this year, which is interesting. Not really many pure centers out there, it feels like, this year either. You kind of just have this weird mix of left tackles with a little bit of an injury history and a handful of right tackles out there that people keep wanting to put all of the right tackles at guard for some reason in this class. I've noticed that too. Marcus Bow keeps getting pushed inside by a lot of people. At the very beginning of this draft process, a lot of people were talking about Armand Membo as a guard instead of a tackle, which I think that's kind of gone away. I think people are much more willing to accept that he's like a real tackle. And as a prospect, just as an offside, that's why Membo is so fascinating. Pure right tackle, exactly what we need, right? Um, and my fear, I think he's going at 11. I think he's going to San Francisco, if I had to guess right now, which him and help me, the all pro Hall of Fame left tackle for the San Francisco 49ers.
Trent Williams.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a crazy bookend for them. Okay, we're finally starting to get some comments in here tonight. We got one from Aaron Van Buren, my good friend, also former collegiate offensive lineman. So I do trust his word on pretty much all things offensive line. Membo is better than Simmons. I hear that a lot now. At the start of the process, Simmons was kind of the clear cut number one tackle, I think, in this class. And he kind of just keeps falling. And Simmons is coming off that ACL injury, which is always scary for any athlete, but for a large man, offensive lineman, ACL can get pretty scary. And Cards Kingdom is saying Gray Zabel is the top guard. And see, he keeps getting listed at tackle in a lot of places too. So Gray Zabel, I think, will be a decision for teams on what they need the most. And I think he can kick inside. He's one of the intriguing small school guys that's out there in this class. Chris Young, happy to have you in here. We've got one of your mocks in here, I believe, so I look forward to that. And also from AVB's got a video coming out on these two guys coming soon. So I would definitely recommend everyone go watch that when it comes out because, as I said, Aaron Van Buren actually has some real life experience at playing offensive line, which is something that I've never done. People always say when they look at me, man, I bet you were an offensive lineman. No, I'm just fat. I was in the marching band. Dana, how are you? I think Bo could play right tackle, but a Pro Bowl guard. Yeah, I think so too. I think he actually does kick inside. And Red Sea, you're almost done with work. I'm sorry that you're working this late, although that might be Arizona time, so maybe that's okay.
Hey, that's still late for us.
Yeah, that's true. Brian Abdallah, nice to have you in here. Membo could go top 5 per Ben Albright. Whoa, that would be crazy.
I was gonna bring this up. I was like top. I'm not sure about 11. Patriots love him, is what I'm hearing.
So Membo's had one of the craziest draft rises of this offseason, I think, because he was very, very beginning of everything. He was in the second round or really late first round. And Benjamin Albright is actually a pretty well connected guy. And the stuff that I see him post, it comes true a lot. I think he was one of the first to even put out there that Jonathan Gannon would be the next head coach for us. Like he actually has connections. He is a source on Twitter that I trust. Oh, you're on the East Coast, Red Sea. Oh my gosh, that's worse. I'm so sorry. Yes, thank you, Aaron. Everyone go ahead and share this and get more people in here so we can talk about mocks. Because believe it or not, we only have 3 more mock draft Mondays after this. A month from now, April 24th, the 2025 NFL draft opens on Thursday night. So we are not that far away. The sociology professor, I think, guys, I think this is Dad, just in different disguise.
So
hey, Dad.
He's coming incognito this time. Okay.
Yeah, nice to have you here. Mac Williams saying top 5 for Membo to the Patriots. Okay, for sure. Could see that. People greeting our Lord, the professor. Caleb Anderson, nice to have you back. Zabel to Arizona, picking up steam from the media. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm up for that either. I do think he's a good player, but I don't know. We'll get to him because I am sure he's going to come up in some mocks. All right. I think we've got everyone on here at least once. So let's go ahead now and jump right in to. Oh, we'll go back a minute. I want to first issue an apology. Last week, I may or may not have said some things that could be construed in a heretical way. Some people might call them blasphemous statements, in which I said, I don't care about the chart. I'm going to do what I want. Allegedly. That is what I allegedly said last week. I personally have no memory of that, but I've been told that that is what happened. Yes, Red Sea. All hail the almighty chart. All hail, all hail. And last week, when Dad got on to me about this, I did promise that I would do a mock this week that follows the chart completely. And we're going to see what that looks like. And you're still all going to yell at me for the picks that I made. So I just want to make sure that you know I am using the chart. I am using the highest number of times a position was picked in a certain round to uh, to make my picks in my mock. Okay. The only exception is in the 7th round where we already had one position, so I went to the next highest number of picks. All right. So I will be following this chart. Brian Abdallah, quickly to explain the beautiful chart made by Joseph Camo, the owner of this channel that I am being allowed to host a show on. The chart basically goes through what the front offices of the Patriots, the Titans, and the Cardinals have done while Monty Ossenfort has been involved with them. So Monty was part of the scouting department and the front office for the Patriots and the Titans before he came to the Cardinals as a general manager. So this chart looks at the positions that were picked in what round, how many times, through his history of involvement with that people to kind of give you some sense of his background, where he comes from, how the organizations that he's worked with before have thought about position value, player value in certain rounds, things like that. So it is sort of a guideline of what's happened in the past for organizations that Monty Ossenfort's been a part of. And this chart also does include the data from the 2023 Arizona draft. So not the most recent one, but
A real shorter answer would have been it's gospel.
yeah, this is all Joe Camo is doing. This is his data analysis, and in his community that we are all a part of, thankfully, this is the gospel truth, and this will guide us to what the 2025 draft might look like. So I don't want to be sacrilegious anymore. Praise be to the chart. We will look at a mock that kind of follows this pattern and see what it looks like. And you guys can still yell at me about how you don't like those particular players. So that's going to be our next slide. Are we all ready for that? Let's go ahead and start with my mock for this week, and then we'll go to Drew's, and then we'll go to everyone else's. All righty. Let's take a look at mine. So this is a stick and pick draft, and I am just flowing down the chart for the positions that are picked most often in certain rounds. So that means sticking at 16, I had a bit of a conundrum on what to do because the chart says that I should be picking an offensive tackle at that position in the first round, which I don't disagree with. A trenches pick in the first round is what this team needs right now. We're not in the luxury pick spot yet where we can just be taking fun players in the first because we just went to the Super Bowl last year. We're still pushing for the playoffs, and when you're in that position in your team building journey, trenches pick is always great. So in reality, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, anything along one of those lines, I think is a very reasonable first round pick. But going by the chart, offensive tackle. And I had two available to me here. Membo was gone. The two top tackles that I had left when I was picking were Josh Simmons and Kelvin Banks. In most big boards, Josh Simmons is still going to be ranked higher. And from a pure talent perspective, I probably agree with that. But there are reasons like the ACL injury to be a little bit more cautious about taking Josh Simmons, at least with a first round pick. If you had a talented offensive lineman like that in a later round, then yeah, maybe you take that leap and take that risk. But if you're looking for your true right tackle of the future, then you kind of want to go with the player who provides at least the best possible chance of being available and being healthy. And while Kelvin Banks is not my favorite player in the world, he was the best tackle that I had available there in the first round. So that is who I ran with. Thank you, Dana, for the correction. It was a patellar tendon, not an ACL. And Red Sea also backing that up. He's going to miss a chunk of his rookie year with that patellar tendon tear. So,
Well, there's some question on that because the way he's talking and the way he talked about it at the combine, he said he's going to be ready for pro day. So I'm really interested to see that. If he actually can go out there and work, I think that could maybe boost that stock back up a little bit.
sure, I think if he can prove that the injury is not going to be a super detriment and that he can be a starter, then that's going to change a lot of teams' minds because Josh Simmons really is a talented football player. I don't really have a question about that. And coming from a fabulous Ohio State offensive line. So, great player. And yes, Jake Wetterly. We'll get to that in the second round. Why Maxwell Harrison? Well, I'm just following the chart, guys. I'm just following the chart, which says I should be taking a cornerback in the second round. So I did. And Maxwell Harrison was there in the second round as probably the best available option there. And there are good things to say about Maxwell Harrison for sure. He ran, I believe, the fastest or the second fastest 40 at this combine, a sub 4.3. I'm not trying to have a tone. I promise. I promise. I promise. But Maxwell Hairston, great size, amazing speed, can really thrive in that man coverage type of cornerback role. He's not a complete player to me, though. He is not a complete cover corner like a Will Johnson, which day by day, I kind of like it more and more, but I'm sure we'll see some of that. No dad today, the kids will play. This is the chart, though, Robert Moore. That's the point. People hated on my mock last week. I'm just following a chart, baby. My third round pick, Jordan Birch, edge out of Oregon. This one I do like a lot. Now with Josh Sweat as your number one edge guy, hopefully a healthy BJ Ojolari, and that rotation of Zaven Collins and Baron Browning. Jordan Birch is kind of a perfect option of an edge player that you don't have to rely on to be a double-digit sack guy his rookie year, but you throw him into the rotation and he's going to be productive. He is a really good football player. So that third round area is where I would really like to see edge anyway, now that we have Sweat. I think that is really good. And yeah, there's a bit of positional question about Birch, whether or not he's really like more of a Darius Robinson defensive lineman than he is a true edge. That can be worked out. You can find a place for a player like that. Willie Lampkin in the fourth round. Don't hate at all. But it's not exactly the need that we have at the moment. Because even though Willie Lampkin is listed as a center, we talked about this last week in the stream, he is a guard. Or sorry, he's listed as a guard. He is a center at the next level. He is 5'11". He doesn't have the size to be on the outside of an offensive line. But we've seen examples of undersized centers in the past. And we talked a bit about, oh no, is Dad in here?
I was going to say, I don't know if you're about to get praised or lambasted or both.
I don't know. I'll keep going until I see his face pop up. But we've seen, crazy example, I know, but Jason Kelsey, future Hall of Fame center, as an undersized guy who can actually use his lack of size as an advantage in the leverage game against really, really large defensive tackles. And Willie Lampkin's a fun player to watch.
And we've seen examples of Willie Lampkin locking up very large defensive tackles who are much bigger than him. So we know he can do it. It's just
he did it at North Carolina. He did it at a high level in a good conference. So there's not that question either. Lampkin, yeah, he's only an inch taller than Kyler Murray, which would be really interesting. And I'm not sure we're in that spot right now to be taking Froholt's backup instead of a real need at starting right guard. So that one's a bit iffy. Simeon Barrow from Miami, just getting a defensive lineman. I think he's a rather good defensive lineman. Getting him in the 5th round, at least, that's pretty decent value. And then LeJontay Wester. One minute, guys. Um, LeJontay Wester, the wide receiver out of Colorado. A lot of wide receivers from Colorado going in this draft, but he in particular is purely a slot guy, slot specialist, like he was at Colorado. Is he an immediate upgrade over Greg Dortch? I don't know. I don't know that he would be, but I wouldn't mind bringing him in as sort of like that competition for Greg Dortch. See if you can get some more production out of the slot. Yeah, he'd probably have to kick inside for sure. Dana hasn't gotten to the Birch film yet, but he's a good player. He is. It is just a question of deciding exactly what to do with him along the defense. Oh yeah, any Umbridge reference I have a deep respect for. Okay, for Willie Lampkin, I'm assuming that's a height that Kyler Murray can see the middle of the field. We talked a little bit about this in the stream last week. Kyler Murray's always been his size. I'm not really sure that seeing the field is his issue. He knows how to get around that, but it is nice to not have a 6'8" guy right in front of Kyler Murray. That is for sure. Cards Kingdom saying Jordan Birch was played out of position in college, but he was really good as a 5 technique. I would defer to Drew, who has apparently watched a lot more Oregon football this year than I have.
I would I would tend to agree. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. Apparently, I got the audio fixed and then I lose my voice. Go figure. But no, I would tend to agree. I think he was played out of position more. He can definitely play on the outside. He showed flashes of it. He could play either position, and I could see him being kind of one of those hybrid rotational pieces. You could maybe play him on the line inside a little bit in certain situations, or outside in other situations. So he could fit a couple different roles, but I'm not as concerned about him playing on the edge, despite what we've seen from him at Oregon. He had enough. There was enough there on the edge that I'm not worried about it at all.
Dad, you've had a vision. There's a new chart. Dad, if there's a new chart, you got to hop in the stream and give us the new chart. The people yearn for the chart. We need to see the data with all the 12 picks that we had last year in the 2024 draft. I hope you're working on that, Dad. Thank you. Dana, Wester was 163 pounds at the combine. Yeah, it's the same knock as Tez Johnson. Small guy. Small guys can live. I don't know. I get it. I have the same sort of issues.
But he does go Burr though, so I will give you that.
He's so fast, and that's probably more than anything else. Just the thing that I think that wide receiver room needs desperately is speed. Michael Wilson and Marv are not speed guys. They're good possession guys. Glad we have them on the team, but not speed guys at all.
I mean, Marv's got some speed. He was clocked over 21 a few times, but it's not really like primarily. You want him being able to do everything. You want that kind of genuine, like 4.29, 4.3 kind of guy that can just really take the top off. And LeJontay could be that. I think Dortch has got more speed than people give him credit for. The difference with him is he doesn't have the acceleration. Like, it takes him a lot longer to get those legs turning over. LeJontay just takes off. Like, it's 0 to 60 like that.
Yeah, he is crazy fast. Dortch has that quick twitch type of agility speed, but his long speed is not necessarily the thing that I'm thinking the team needs a lot. All right, Drew, are you ready to get into yours?
I am now. I did not take the notion of following the chart to a T, so Father, I apologize. But I did still stick to the chart with some there's some ways I stuck to the chart, and people once again are still going to hate it. So we'll talk about it. With the first pick, I went with kind of the consensus favorite, the one that everyone is kind of looking at with Derek Harmon. Figured let's make some people happy before making them mad by going ahead and taking Cam Scattaboo in the second round, which I'm sure
Wow.
that will drive people crazy. Look, like I said, I'm still not yet in the notion of let's make these super realistic. Let's talk about some things. So there's a reason why I did this. So let's talk about it. I know we've seen Cam Scattaboo come up in quite a with the great money in the sky. He won't absolutely. But
Oh,
this
you're
is a
already getting some hate comments, Drew.
Yep, I knew it. There we go. See, I didn't get enough of them last week, so I
True.
really went for it this week.
Very true.
I agree 100%, guys. I know they're not taking a running back in the second. And it's okay, but let's talk about why we did this. And it's not blasphemy. This goes along with the chart. Monty likes the second round running backs. It's not the most popular, but he does like them. So,
True.
okay, at least he said get Scattaboo off the screen, not me. Okay, the reason why I did this is this. We've seen Scattaboo show up on a lot of mock drafts, and we see him coming in at like the fourth, the fifth round. We've seen a lot of those. I don't think he's going to go that far, or I don't think he's going to last that long. I think he's going to go a lot earlier than that. And as we talked about, Kyler, if we don't want him winding up in San Francisco, well, guess who drafts ahead of us in every round? San Francisco.
They do.
So if you want him, you're going to have to overdraft him probably. I traded back. I got some extra capital. I was still able to address needs. And like I said, this isn't happening. It's not realistic. It's okay. So moving
Fair.
forward, let's move beyond that Cam Scattaboo pick, because I really don't think it is going to happen. I just don't, as much as I love him, as much as it would be fun to have him, it'd be a nice long-term James Conner replacement. The brain just says no. Like Kyler said, I'll steal that line from you.
Sure. But tell us more about Ben Morrison. He's a player I haven't seen mocked to us very often.
No, this goes more in the lines of that second round kind of cornerback. This is a guy coming out of Notre Dame who I think has been a little underrated. There was a time again in his life when he was projected as a first round pick and has kind of played up to that level and just hasn't been getting some of the love. He's not the most athletic cornerback, but he's really physical. And seeing him and some of the battles he had with Marvin Harrison Jr., like I would just love to see that in training camp. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So if we're looking to add to the cornerback room, this wouldn't be a bad way to do it. Again, you're getting the additional capital, so you're not spending like your only second round pick on it, and you're still picking up a really talented player. Please don't say Scat and Sam. I don't want to. I really don't want to.
I don't want to see that either. I've seen this a couple times with Ben Morrison having a hip injury. Anything that you would be particularly concerned about?
I don't know much about the hip injury. I know he's dealing with it, but as far as I know, he's going to be ready to go by camp. So that's what I've heard, but I haven't heard a ton about it. I haven't looked a ton into the injury specifically, more so the player. Yeah, well, that's good. Well, good to know. Good to know, Red Sea. Thank you for updating that, because I was not aware. That's something that I'll have to take into account and maybe not look at him next time.
This is a point about running backs. If Genty is available at 16, do you think he actually would be something or someone that a team would move up for?
If he's there at 16, yeah, I definitely think so. I think
Do you
somebody
think
would.
there's any chance he falls to 16?
No, I really don't. I know there's been some talk about that. I think there's going to be there could be as many as 4 running backs that go in the first round. I don't think there are going to be, but there could be.
See, this is a year that I just couldn't envision one of those surprise run on quarterbacks. It's happened a lot in the past of guys that don't really have first round grades, but teams get desperate and want a quarterback. We've seen that a lot. And last year, everyone gets shocked when Michael Penix goes, 8 to Atlanta last year. No one was seeing that happen. So there was that, and then Bo Nix to Denver. Like there was that kind of like early top half of the draft run on quarterbacks. I can't see that happening this year. I can truly only see Cam and Shadur going in the top half of the first round. And that's if Shadur goes in the first half of the first round to one of those three teams at the top who really need a quarterback. But other than that, it might be a very long wait until quarterbacks. And when you don't have that happening, quarterback is the position that will get really great players pushed down to you. I don't see that happening this year. And Ashton Genty's one of the best offensive players in this draft, the best running back in this class. So that would be crazy to see him all the way there at 16. And if he was, then yeah, I could see a team who thinks that they're an elite running back away from moving up to 16 to get that. I'm not sure exactly who that would be. Dana here saying Genty's going in the first. Yeah, Omarion Hampton's another running back I've seen going in the first fairly regularly, but there's so many good running backs this year. Tre'Verian Henderson, Quentin Judkins are amazing. Scat, probably second, third round guy. There's going to be a lot of running backs going in the first 3 rounds this year.
Absolutely. And those four, the first four that Dana mentioned, I think Hampton and Scat easily go in the first, and then Judkins, Henderson could. There could be a team that just said, you know what, this is the best player on our board, and we don't really love anyone else. We can get value elsewhere. We're just going to take him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love Caleb too. I just think he's going in the second, but I love him.
Caleb's great. Yeah. Great. All right, tell us. Well, we've talked about Mark Spow quite a bit actually in previous streams. Kobe King, though, linebacker from Penn State, he's kind of generally available around that 5th, 6th round area. So tell us a little bit about him.
I'll be completely honest. I don't even know that much about Kobe yet. It was more an availability and need pick there. I've still got to get to Kobe. Malachi, I've done a little bit of work on. Again, it was more of a need pick. He's another one of those kind of undersized safeties. He fits the Buddha mold well. It's just more injury concerns with him. Can he really hold up at the next level? But he's a really, really smart player. And so I like that about him. He played kind of multiple positions. But the one that I brought that I really want to talk about is Elijah Badger, because that's the wide receiver that is one of my favorite kind of team scheme fits here for Arizona. Kind of breaks the mold a little bit for what we were just talking about, is maybe not having the best long speed, but he's a really, but he's a really big body slot receiver that's got good twitch, good yards after the catch, can win at all 3 levels of the field, and another former ASU guy. So it just kind of has that connection, brings him back home there. I've loved Elijah Badger for a couple years. I would still love him on this team.
I loved him in his time at Arizona State. I will always have a soft spot for Elijah Badger, but Red Sea coming in with some more information about Kobe King for us. He's a twin brother of Marvin Harrison Jr.'s son, Kalen King. Okay. Nice to know. This is a total side note. There are so many sibling pairs in football nowadays. Doesn't it feel like everyone's related to each other? Like Kyler Murray has multiple cousins, I think, in the NFL. Like there are these families just producing crazy athletes out there now.
It's crazy. In a couple of years, the entire league is going to look like it did like 15 years ago with all the people that are coming out, with Devin, EJ Warner coming out, Philip Rivers kids coming out.
Legends are having their sons come in the game now. It's weird. And Paul, this is what I was saying earlier. Kobe King is generally available around there. Dana, our massive inside reporter, coming in with character concerns for Malachi Moore. I've definitely heard that. I've heard kind of reports about him being immature. I've mocked him a couple times too, just as an example of maybe taking a developmental safety somewhere late, because you think next year there's a decent chance Jalen Thompson won't be with the team, I think, next year. And you'll be running with Dadrian Taylor Demerson and Buda Baker, and then throw a developmental safety into the mix.
Yeah, there are definitely other guys I like better. This was just more like, hey, let's highlight somebody we haven't seen a whole ton, so we'll throw his name out there. That's why I
Okay.
was like, I got a little bit.
Hot take kind of here from Pee Wee Herman's bow tie. Enough with the ASU guys. Um, I don't think you're ever going to get us to stop with ASU guys. People like to see hometown kids play for their team. It's just a thing. And Scat, this was a comment from last stream that has stuck with me. Yes, I would still love Scat even if he wasn't a Sun Devil. If you have 100+ broken tackles in a season and you play like Cam Scat with 1,700+ yards at his size with his story from freaking Sacramento State, he's one of the best stories in college football. My second favorite Sun Devil of all time. Will
And
not
here's the
take questions.
Here's the thing about having that James Conner, that Cam Scadaboo type running back. It's kind of needed in our scheme. We like getting our edges out in space. We like our guys going, you know what? Running back, you break the first tackle. So you kind of need a guy that can do that.
For sure. Yeah, the National Family League, that's kind of what it's turning into. Got a lot of brothers out there, lots of sons coming into the league now. It's really interesting. Well, I would disagree with that. Arizona State went pretty dang far this year, and they are on a pretty good path under Kenny Dillingham. And in the past, Arizona State, even when they weren't winning a ton of games, they were producing a lot of elite wide receiver prospects for quite a good stretch of years.
Nikhil Harry not included.
Yeah. Didn't he get converted to tight end in New England or something?
I think so. Yeah. I think that sounds right.
And this I disagree with in the sense that his role I don't think would just fall exactly where he would be on the depth chart. You know what I mean? Would he maybe show up on a roster as running back 3? Yes, but Scat does things that Trey Benson will never be able to do. And that's just a fact. Scat, if anyone, combines some of the elements of James Conner and Trey Benson into one player. You could do a lot of creative, interesting things with that running back room. Just not sure if I actually trust Drew Petzing to do that.
You could do the tush push with Scat.
And to Dana's point, yes, I don't think anyone has forgiven the Cards for not drafting Terrell Suggs. Did he steal money from us in his retirement? Yes, he did. But prime Terrell Suggs, if he had been a Cardinal for his entire career, just imagine that, dude. Just
Yeah.
imagine.
I still talk
ASU
about
would
that
be
as
the
one of the
12th
worst.
best team in the SEC. Well, it did take a bogus targeting call for Texas to get past us in the college football playoffs. So,
See,
and
now here's
Benson
the thing
was
is
an amazing.
I was gonna say I am college agnostic because I haven't gone to college, but I will always have love for the home team, and that is ASU and U of A. So some people can blast me for that one there, but I'll root for both always. I don't care.
Sure. Sure. Drew's playbook is concerning. My concern with any wide receiver that we do pick up in this offseason is what is Drew Petzing's improved passing scheme going to look like next year? That is something that we definitely need to look at because Marvin Harrison Jr. is a talent that we have not fully unlocked, and that is really the next step for this offense to be successful. All right, Drew, are you done with your draft? We're ready to move on?
I am done getting roasted and blasted as I rightfully should have for that. So
There are some good players in here. Derek Harmon, I like a lot. Bow is great. And Elijah Badger, I'll have a soft spot for, but yeah, not sure if he is the perfect fit for us right now. All right, let's get into our friend Gazornik, I believe is how it's pronounced now. Father, I am not doing this on purpose. I did look in the layers and I cannot find it at all. I'm very, very sorry. That is why. I'm not hiding information from the masses at all. I promise. I promise. If we can get that updated chart up, we will, and we will take a look at it. All right. I'm not sure if this is verified about the tush push being banned yet. I know that was put forward by the Green Bay Packers. I'm not sure if that actually passed or not.
Yeah, I don't think they've had the league meetings yet, have they?
But yeah, I'm not sure about that. But let's go ahead and take this look at Gazornik here. Let's see. Whoa. Okay. Massive trade up, which is very anti-Monty. Very interesting. Oh, father has arrived. Everyone saw that, right?
It was the Holy Spirit. He wasn't really here.
It popped up for one brief. There it is. There it is, everybody. All right, let's take a quick look at this. This is including the data from the 2024 draft now. One thing that I notice immediately is that we've added another cornerback to the second round. So we've made that an even deeper green. So cornerback in the second round is a very common thing amongst these front offices. 4 offensive tackles in the first round, which one of those is from his time in Arizona when we took Paris Johnson Jr. What are some other big upgrades? So 6 linebackers in the 6th round. So that's sort of an area to target for linebackers. And then a ton of cornerbacks in the 7th round. Really just look at the numbers of cornerbacks, which does line up with what's happened in Arizona the past couple of years. We've drafted a lot of cornerbacks lately. So 6 in the 2nd round, 6 in the 7th round, guys that you're just throwing out there hoping might make the team, might be special teamers. 5 interior offensive linemen in the 4th round. So this is a point that Joe has brought up a lot when I do really stupid early interior offensive line picks, that generally, if you look at the data, Monty has generally been a part of organizations that place value on the guard center position right smack in the middle of the draft in the 4th round. So that is interesting, something to think of when you're doing your own mocks. And the most common time to take a running back is in the 3rd round, which is where we took Trey Benson last year. So that lines up with his previous stuff. And wide receivers are all down the line. Wide receivers in the 1st round. So one of those is including Marvin Harrison Jr. Last year, 3 wide receivers in the 4th, and then late round wide receivers as well. So that is interesting. And what is also interesting is that Monty's never been part of an organization that's taken a 1st round quarterback. So he wasn't here for Kyler Murray. And no 1st round or 2nd round tight ends. Trey McBride's a 2nd round tight end, but he was under the Steve Keim regime and has never drafted an interior offensive lineman in the first 2 rounds, which I think is the most interesting.
My whole thing about that is, look, I really do trust Monty, so I don't want this to come across the wrong way, because there is that kind of camp, and I'm not in it. I really do trust him. But one thing that does kind of baffle me a little bit is, if you're not going to pay and value guard and pay them in free agency the money that they're wanting to get paid, you might want to value them a little bit higher in the draft. That's just my thinking. But, time will tell on how that all works out.
Right. Yeah, this is how Monty sees drafting cornerbacks, which has panned out in his experience as the Arizona Cardinals GM, I think, because we've drafted 4 cornerbacks in the last 2 drafts, I think. You really are kind of shotgun approaching with a cornerback and hoping that you're going to come out with something. And this is a good question, Dana. I don't know how many of these tackles were converted to inside later. That is an interesting thing. And a good point from Joe. The Patriots took Gronk before Monty was part of their organization, so he's not included in this data. And this is an important point to me from Mac Williams. Late round value of wide receivers and DBs makes sense because of special teams. That is what I think that very deep green 6 cornerbacks in the 7th round is, and the 3 wide receivers in the 7th. Maybe you get really lucky and you hit on the next great receiver, the next great cornerback. Crazier things have happened. But also maybe you're just getting really good special teamers who have size and speed. And Dana, if you come prepared in the next stream for that, we would love to hear about any tackles that moved inside from this. All right. Now, how do I get back?
We're going back to Gazer Nix. Oh, I'll see myself out. That was terrible.
There we go. Oh no, it was beautiful. I liked it. Let's see, Gazornik, back to yours. In the very, very, very rare trade up, Abdul Carter is an amazing talent. I agree. Will this ever happen in 3 million years? I don't think so. It just doesn't seem like it's in Monty's wheelhouse to do this. You're giving up the 16 pick, our second round this year, second round next year, and second round in 2027 to get Abdul Carter. Great talent. And if you could look into the future and you saw that Abdul Carter was the next Myles Garrett, then sure, it would make sense. But yeah, this would be crazy. Ozzie Trapio as a tackle in the third round is a player I like. Jamari Caldwell in the fourth is kind of around where I see him a lot, fourth or fifth round. And I like Jamari Caldwell a lot. If you are going to go after some other positions earlier and wait to get that defensive lineman, Jamari Caldwell is kind of like my prime pick to get one of those later round defensive linemen if you're going to not take Kenneth Grant or not take Derek Harmon or one of the really top guys. And then Kobe King again, and a guard, Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State. Don't know enough about him to really have an informed opinion. I will be totally honest. Red Sea saying that Monty did try to move up last year, just wasn't able to get a deal done.
That is true. And
true.
It was for a pass rusher.
Yeah. But still came out with Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, and everything worked out that way. This trade up is essentially extreme couponing in the NFL draft. It'd be interesting, to say the least. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We got Jace, our friend AZ Jace, with it looks like a stick and pick draft. Will Johnson at 16. Donovan Jackson at 47. CJ West, another defensive lineman I like a lot, had an amazing combine. In the third round, Tez Johnson falling all the way to the fourth, which would have been crazy a couple weeks ago, but I could see that happening now. Danny Stutzman, linebacker from Oklahoma, and Jack Nelson from Wisconsin. This is a pretty solid draft.
I think that addresses all of our needs right there. I think Danny Stutzman's super underrated. Again, he's another guy that was much higher earlier before the season, talked about a lot more. And then as the season went on, just people kind of sort of forgot about him. But he's a solid talent. And he's another guy that he's a technician and you can plug him in. You're not too worried about him making a lot of dumb rookie mistakes.
Yeah, I think that's the one that sticks out from this draft is the Stutzman pick in round 5. I think that's really good value for him. And he's kind of just being an undersold player right now. It's kind of surprising. Linebacker out of a major program. He's kind of going unnoticed right now. But I like Danny Stutzman. I like Donovan Jackson a lot too. I'm glad that through this mock draft simulator, he is actually labeled correctly as an interior offensive lineman. That is what he is. Even though he did take over for Josh Simmons at the end of last season at Ohio State, he's a guard. But at 47, if that's what you're going to do, you definitely expect him to be your starting right guard day one, right? But Will Johnson is a player I've gotten more and more on board with. mostly because Sweat and Dalvin Tomlinson take a lot of my stress away about the two huge needs along the front seven. And I just get ahead of myself thinking of the possibilities of Will Johnson, Max Melton, um, Garrett Williams, and then seeing what you have in situations from Keitrell Clark and Elijah Jones. That was just such a young cornerback room with so much talent. Will Johnson is the best cover corner in this draft.
I agree. I've definitely come around to the idea. I will say, I think Johnson is a little bit more. He's not quite what everyone's saying. Like, I think he's a better zone coverage man. He's super, super smart in zone. He can at times have some issues in man coverage, but we play 60 to 70% in the zone anyways. So I'm not
Yeah.
too worried about that. He would be a perfect scheme fit. And I think, with the work that Monty has done with defensive backs, like, he could work out any issues that he has. If he's the best player and he's there, I'm fine with it 100%. He's on my list of, like I said, about 20 guys I have that we could go and I would be kind of okay with at this point.
Yeah, we're in a really good spot at 16 actually now. And Mizaki, Felix, yeah, our front seven still needs help. I agree with that. Sweat and Tomlinson don't fix everything. However, they make me less nervous about having to draft at 16 or somewhere in the first round someone that you have to rely on to come in day one and fix all of that stuff. So it puts you in a really good position, whether you stick at 16 or whether you take that opportunity to pick up a little bit of capital and move back some. But if Will Johnson's still there at 16, it might be kind of hard to say no to it. Yeah, he is a zone heavy corner. We're a zone heavy system. Yeah, he would fit really well. He's long. I'm not worried about his long speed. He plays plenty fast. He's just a really good player. Really good player. Sweat still makes me very nervous. I remember your comments on one of my videos, and I get where you're coming from if you're just looking at the numbers of Sweat, and he's coming from a really elite defense. And I know one of the arguments is that Sweat's just a product of coming from an elite defense. But the flip side of that argument is his numbers are a little bit lower than you might want out of a clear-cut number one edge guy because he comes from an elite defense. Everyone had to eat some. So it wasn't just Sweat doing everything. He's not going to put up Chandler Jones type of numbers as that clear-cut number one guy. There were just so many guys on that defense. So it goes both ways, I think. Did he benefit from some one-on-ones from an elite defensive line? Sure. I'm sure he did. Did he also not get some opportunities to get sacks and put up other stats because there were a bunch of other elite players in that defense? Absolutely. So I think that goes a bit both ways. Note from Dad, more details on the offensive line in early rounds from the Monty chart. Round 1, Nate Solder, which Isaiah Wynn, both from New England, I believe. Paris Johnson Jr. and Isaiah Wilson, and all 4 stayed at tackle. Okay. Nate Solder turned out to be a solid player. Paris Johnson Jr. is having a really solid career so far, I think, and is only going to continue to get better.
Isaiah Wynn's been another one. He's maybe not a world beater, but I mean,
He's
Paris
solid.
Johnson Jr. has been the best out of all of those.
Yeah,
so far.
I agree. Yeah, Will Johnson's long speed isn't fabulous, but dude is a ball player. And he really is the best pure cover corner in this draft. People can fight me. Travis Hunter's talented, but Will Johnson's like a true corner's corner.
And everything, honestly, that Cards Kingdom just mentioned about Will can also be true about Travis at times. Like, he will get beat throughout the game at times, but he's such a ball hawk, and he's so clutch. He makes big plays in the fourth quarter, like, all the time when they need it. And so you kind of forget sometimes about some of the reps where he got beat.
Mm-hmm.
But I like Will better. I just do, as a pure cornerback.
I do too. Let's move on to the next one. Mr. Money Manette. We got another Will Johnson. We got some Will Johnson truthers in here, and I'm here for it. This was a pick that I would have mocked, like not mocked, but made fun of, about a month ago, but I'm getting more and more on board. Will Johnson at 16, Darius Alexander at 47. With the hype he's been getting, him lasting to 47 would be kind of surprising. And if he does, awesome. JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State. As a guy you don't have to rely on to be number one edge, and you can throw him into the rotation, let him develop a little bit more. I like it. Danny Stutzman, a lot earlier for this one at 115. Logan Brown, the tackle from Kansas, I like it. And Dante Thornton from Tennessee, wide receiver. Again, this is a pretty solid draft. It hits every major need. You're waiting until the 7th round to get that wide receiver, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but you're not throwing a lot of capital at it. This is a really solid draft.
Absolutely. I mean, JT, I see a lot of people, Cardinals fans who love Jack Sawyer. Give me JT all day. I
Yeah,
think he's a more athletic guy. Jack Sawyer, I think, is just maybe a half a rung above Dennis Gardeck.
yeah, agreed. And to Erva's point, yeah, Will Johnson and Marv 1v1s would be amazing to watch. You got that Buckeye Wolverine rivalry going on. You have rivalry week going on every day at practice. That'd be fun. And they saw each other in college. They know each other's game, so that'd be fun to watch.
Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah. And okay, also from Dad, Radins played inside, but he was drafted as an offensive tackle. 6'6", 34-inch arms. Yeah, that is someone you think of as a tackle for sure. Mr. Money, apparently Robert Moore likes your draft quite a bit. He gives it an A-. That is not a bad grade at all. Yeah, I like this one. This is just a solid. You don't have to move around a bunch or do a bunch of crazy things, and just pick up some good players. I like this one.
And Robert's a tough grader, so that's impressive.
It is. I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. Money, for getting an A- from Robert. All right, let's take a look at Lance. Man, 3 Will Johnsons in a row. Let's go.
We've
All
got
right.
a theme.
We also got some moving around. So it looks like we traded pick 47 to the Los Angeles Chargers, and we got way more than we get in real life. 55 in the 2nd round, a 3rd round pick, a 5th round pick, and a 6th round pick. That hauls a little bit more for maybe moving around in the 1st. But I love the idea of moving around and getting more picks. 6 picks feels low for Monty. I think he just wants more. You increase that chance of actually hitting on a player if you have more chances to pick more players. It's just numbers. 6 players, you're kind of in a bad place if you don't hit on more than half of them. You only get 2 impact players out of it, and that can get pretty rough. Will Johnson in the 1st, Alfred Collins in the 2nd round at 55, great player. And as part of that, like 2nd tier of defensive linemen, once you get out of the 1st round, he is one of my top guys. Jalen Knoll in the 3rd. He's been getting a lot of hype lately, and for good reason. He's a very talented wide receiver. I like him quite a bit. Out of Iowa State wide receivers, though, he wouldn't be my pick. Out of Iowa State receivers. I'm currently trying to stall and think of the name of the other one that I would prefer as a slot wide receiver. And it's not coming to me at the moment, but it will. Got also Jordan Birch, Charles Grant, a guard from William and Mary, Jeffrey Bassa, who you love, I know, from last week, Jared Ivey, the edge out of Mississippi. Okay, maybe Jalen Knoll is who I am thinking of. Jaden Higgins is who I'm not thinking of. Correct. Yes. Thank you, Dana. You come in so clutch, as always. Yes. Sorry. I forgot the name of the guy I do like. Sorry. That's super embarrassing for me. Jared Ivey, the edge out of Mississippi, and Jaden Blue, running back from Texas. Looks like in the 7th round. Okay.
I totally just had one of those moments where I was like, no, yeah, what Dana just said. But the name wasn't coming to me, so I couldn't say anything. So thank you for bailing me out on that, as I had to look it up.
Yeah, Dana bails us out all the time. So Ivy, she's saying, is a bit more of a 3-4 defensive end listed as an edge. That's a really common thing in this class. It also just points to kind of the nebulous definition among defenses now, college and NFL. You're not nearly as set into a position as you were 20 years ago. There are guys that do a lot of different things at a lot of different spots, and defenses are getting very creative to keep up with creative offenses. So the definitions kind of get a little bit nebulous, a little bit ambiguous sometimes.
There are
Oh, another
very few teams. I was just gonna say, there are very few teams these days that are running just a true
yeah,
4-3 set.
r-
There are few, but the rest of them are
really,
all running
really
hybrids.
rare. Yeah. Lance, you're getting another A- out of Robert Moore. I'm proud of you, buddy.
Robert woke up on the right side of the bed today.
He did. And there would be competition at camp with this draft, which I think is what Monty and Gannon are both on board with. Of you bring in a lot of guys so that you can weed out the worst of them and you're left with the best. Only having 6 tries at getting that done, it's a lot harder. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You get 8 tries out of this one, which is nice. I like that. I do think the more likely trade back, though, is probably 16.
And then I did just want to say real quick to that 3-4-4-3 discussion, because
Yeah.
it is fascinating. Go watch what Cincinnati has been doing and watch what they did last year. I paid some attention to that because I was interested to see when we were talking about Trey Hendrickson. They ran some weird stuff because both him and Hubbard are what you'd consider the more 4-3 defensive end types. They were running with those guys, both of those guys on the field, both of them on the edge. One of them would play hands down, one of them would play hands up, and they would flip them both sides, which one would be doing it the whole game. And it's just wild. And they both were winning consistently. So I don't even know anymore. An edge is an edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I think that's why we've seen edge thrown out there as a definition for a position so much more lately, where it used to be you're a defensive end and you're an outside linebacker. That's all getting kind of thrown into players that can play, and they just kind of happen to be in certain positions of the field. Defenses are getting really, really creative lately. And Paul G is also loving this draft, Lance. You're doing well. Birch Bassa, I agree. That's really nice Oregon pairing. Cards Kingdom is also giving Lance an A. Love it. There's a lot of love for you out here tonight, Lance. Makes me so sad that we've got to go on to the next one from Chris Young. Okay, so another trade back. Looks like 10 spots down to 26 from 16, and still getting Walter Nolan. Amazing talent. The question with Nolan has nothing to do with talent. And I'm not even sure how much I believe of he doesn't practice very hard or he has character concerns. You hear that stuff in every offseason. However, if we get another Robert Kimdichie, I'm going to lose my mind. But Walter Nolan's a very talented player.
Nolan is either going to be the next Robert Condici or the next Aaron Donald at this point, and there really is no grade.
Right.
grade. So.
That is what it feels like for him. Like he could end up being the best defensive tackle out of this class easily. But he could also be Robert Kimdichie. And I just don't know which one it's going to be. And I don't want to be the team that has to find that out again. It always
Not,
feels like it's up to the Cardinals to figure that out.
not when it's so stacked.
Yeah. Jonah Savanea, the tackle from Arizona, have also seen being moved inside by some people, but I think could play tackle at the next level too. Even Dana, Savanea is growing on me. And yes, Dana, you do spell real good. So good. But if it is growing on you, Joe is correct, and he is a doctor, so you might want to go see a healthcare professional about that, Dana. I just want you to get checked. I want you to be safe. We got Ty Felton at 84, wide receiver from Maryland, who is flying up draft boards this week. I did not see Ty Felton above the 6th round 4 weeks ago, and he's now consistently getting up here into the 80s and higher. I guess he had a very good pro day. I need to look a lot more into Ty Felton. If anyone here in the chat has more information about Ty Felton, please go ahead and throw that in here. Jordan Birch again. Smile Mondon, linebacker from Georgia. Jamari Caldwell at 142 would probably be the steal of this draft. Amazing value. And then guard Luke Kandra out of Cincinnati. I like it. I guess this is not including our 7th round pick, but I really like this. So Robert Moore is saying that he would see Savanea moving inside. Brett Coleman, who is a guy in this space that I do trust his opinion quite a lot, has him as one of his sleepers. And if anyone in here is a bad person and a University of Arizona fan and has more information about Jonah, please go ahead and throw that in the chat. If you do know too much about him, and I know that you're an Arizona fan, I will never respect you again, but I will take your opinion on Savanea. Yeah, seen it a lot projecting as guard, but can play it at tackle, which is kind of what I would want at that 47 anyway. I am worried about starting right guard. That is something I'd like to see get addressed in this draft.
And I think getting one of those guys that's got the tackle flexibility as well just works perfectly in case you've got anything that happens with Jonah, or next year if his contract expires, if it's somebody that you like kicking out. Isaiah Adams also was a tackle converted to guard. So you've got both of those guys that have that ability.
Right. Savanea grading in the low 9s, RAS at tackle, but a 9.83 at guard. Wow. Okay. I know he's a good athlete for sure. Robert Moore giving Chris Young a B. All right. And these are all decent value picks, and these are all places that need to get addressed. I don't think there's any superfluous picks in here. And apparently Coleman likes Savanea at guard. All right. And also I think some information about Ty Felton. He was the 6th fastest in the wide receiver group, which is great. We definitely need some speed. Apparently he's great in College Football 25. All right, I'll have to boot that up on the Xbox after this and take a look. And Simon G telling us that Ty Felton profiles as a true Z. Okay. Yeah, when he was in the 6th, probably was criminally low, but this is a process where players can go from 7th round to 2nd round and in a week. Things can go all over the place. Something from Paul G here. All right, Ty Felton running a 4.37. More than good enough speed. Anything sub 4.3 is really just for show. Like you are more than fast enough in the 4.3s to be really successful in the NFL. And at 6'1", 183, that is a decent combo of size and speed. All right. I will look more into Ty Felton because I do think speed receiver is a need for this team.
I've been hearing his name a lot, so I've got him on my
Me
list
too.
for next weekend. So now I'm getting even more excited.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some more homework on him because I have been hearing about him a lot from Chris Young. Listening to some interviews of Ty sounds like kind of player Monty would like, which is a valid point about just who Monty takes anyway. He takes character guys, which is why Walter Nolan feels like a not Monty pick. Like, I don't think he'll fall into the same Steve Keim trap of, I'm going to ignore every major red flag on this player because they're talented and just hope that the personality stuff works out. I think Monty will honestly take players who maybe have a little bit less pure talent but have high character and hope that will work out in the end.
Well, Nolan is somebody that they did meet with, though, so it doesn't scare him away enough to not at least sit down with him. So I think it really is going to depend. It would really depend on how that conversation went, and if he could really convince Monty that, look, this is all overblown. I'm really committed, whatever. Yeah. But we aren't in that room, so we don't know.
Sure. All right, let's go on to the next one from O Cards. We've got some movement on this one too. Round 1, moving down from 16 with Minnesota Vikings. to pick pick 24 and a third rounder. And then also moving around in the second round, looks like. And wait, what do we do?
Yeah, you can't see that.
Oh, do you love it?
This is my
You love
absolute
it?
favorite draft so far. Sorry.
All right.
No
So
cards, you win for me.
with Miami, we are throwing away two, three third round picks, going back into the second round and a fourth round. Okay, I like it. And Ezzy at 24, love. Donovan Jackson at 47, love. Tyleek Williams at 48, love. Jamari Caldwell, love. David Walker. At the end of the day, when we grade this draft in 10 years, David Walker will either be a name no one remembers or he'll be a legend. And I don't think there's an in between for him. And I would kind of be willing to, especially with a couple extra picks in here, I'd be willing to throw out that flyer on David Walker because he is so intriguing as a player. I know he's from a different level. He's not from the SEC, but gosh, he's so fun. Johnny Cornelius too, as a tackle depth, I'm fine with. Cody Simmons, linebacker from Ohio State, special teamer probably. Dude, this might be an A+ draft. Might.
I don't have much more to say other than you've got some of my absolute favorite players, and you got David Walker, who I love. So you win. You win for me today, at least so far.
So someone we haven't seen pop up a ton on our mocks though is Tyleek Williams. Do you know a ton about him? Want to talk about him?
I love another one that I absolutely love. I was a lot higher on him earlier, and he's again the interior defensive tackle, interior defensive line class is just crazy this year. He's just sort of forget about him, but he may be one of the best run defenders in this class. Absolutely an anchor in that Ohio State defense, and you saw how nasty that line was. Yeah. Tyleek made a lot of that happen. There were some people I saw that said the reason Myles Garrett won Defensive Player of the Year was Dalvin Tomlinson. You could say that about Tyleek. Tyleek Williams was that of the Ohio State defense.
Right. See a couple comments here about Caldwell and Williams kind of both being nose tackle type players. And Tyleek Williams, I would see as the guy that rotates with Dalvin Tomlinson as your actual nose tackle, because that is his role. Run stuffer, middle, right, smack in the middle of the defensive line, 100%. Jamari Caldwell, though, he did a lot of that in college, but I think he can move one spot over too. I think if you did have something like this happen, and you had Tyleek Williams as a guy that rotates at nose tackle with Tomlinson, and then you have two guys on the other side of him, Darius Robinson, Jamari Caldwell, I think you could get Jamari Caldwell to be effective in that position too. I don't think Caldwell is as committed into the nose tackle role as Williams is. I think playing Williams outside of a true nose tackle would be kind of irresponsible in playing him out of where he's going to be at his best. But Caldwell, I think, could do it. Tyleek is that run stuffer, block shedding. He's incredible.
Yeah. Caldwell, remember, if you go back to his days at Houston, he was playing 5-tech at Houston. He played nose tackle because they had Derek Harmon. So let's just play him here because he can and it works. But he can play anywhere. Caldwell can play anywhere on that line.
Sure. And both of them come from crazy defensive lines. Ohio State and Oregon both had great defensive lines this year. I like this draft. David Walker I might just do a full video on David Walker because I'm turning into a David Walker stan.
I'm such a fan. Especially JJ would love him. I think he would turn him into the next Brandon Graham.
Yeah. And as to Brian Abdallah, having an extra guy to stop the run's not a bad thing. The run defense got better in 2024. It wasn't as much of a just like cheesecloth type of run defense as it was in 2023, but definitely can continue to be improved. Yeah, Walker needs a player review. I agree. He's so fun to watch, man. He's so intriguing. All right. So we move on to the next one, but that was a really good one. O cards. We got Mono 187, who I think is in here. Okay, interesting one. We send 16 and our third rounder to the Bengals for Trey Hendrickson, which you do have to say, in fairness, an edge tandem of Josh Sweat and Trey Hendrickson would feed families. It would be crazy. That'd be fun to watch. But also getting 17 back is interesting. Still getting Walter Nolan. If that happened, awesome. I love that. Jaden Higgins, wide receiver from Iowa State. Tackle Chase Lunt from Connecticut in the 4th round. Kobe King again. And then 7th rounder on Ty Robinson, who had a good combine, actually. Kind of surprised to still see him in the 7th round so often. He's pretty athletic for his size. But this is an interesting one.
Another athletic defensive interior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I agree, Chris, that I don't know how likely this trade is, but if it happened in some world, it would be fun to see Sweat and Hendrickson on opposite sides. That would be, and Dalvin Tomlinson in the middle, a true rookie season for Darius Robinson. And then if you do get another one of these defensive linemen from a deep class, you could change the face of Arizona's defense overnight into like a top 5 unit. That's not an over exaggeration either, because you would open up so much for the secondary to not be as pressured as they were because there's no pressure on the quarterback. It would be a game changer. It is probably unlikely. Trey Hendrickson price tag's probably higher than this. Probably agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any way we would get to keep our 1st round pick in that scenario. But if, like you said, if we could pull that off, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say no to that.
Sure. All right, move on to the next one from Get Gannoned 2 on Twitter. Looks like a little bit of a trade down, 16 to 20, but that's around that range of where I'd be comfortable in a trade down. I like that. You're still getting pretty good value out of it. Donovan Jackson at 20. That's the highest I think I've seen him in any of these mocks. He's generally that number 47 pick. I like Donovan Jackson a lot. I do think you could get better value at 20.
I'm not sure that I can see him going back into the 1st, especially, a team like Minnesota could absolutely use him right there. And again, you're in that kind of that dead zone where you're like, maybe I just don't love some of the tackles, defensive tackles or defensive players that are still here. I brought back a Byron Murphy, so maybe they do look to go that way. So, like you said, he can be hard to get in the mock sometimes because he falls in that range a lot of times. So you trade back, get some extra capital, and still get him. I don't hate it at all.
I think Carts Kingdom kind of agrees with you. Donovan Jackson, good at guard and tackle, which he did show at Ohio State. He can do both. And teams do love versatility. They do love guys that can play both. So that is a good point. That's a good point. I would still like to see it a little bit lower than 20. If you take a really severe trade down to 24 or lower and you went Donovan Jackson, I'm here for it. Red Sea, this does violate the Almighty chart in a heavy way. A guard before the 4th round is a great violation. And so we all shout together, heretic, to get Gannoned. Sorry about that. Sorry. 47, we've got Princely, the edge out of Ole Miss. Really good.
And I finally figured out how to officially say it. I watched the tape. See, that's my problem is I watch a lot of the actual all 22, so I don't actually hear these guys' names, and then I read them and I'm like, oh. But Princely Uman Mielen.
Uman Mielen. Okay.
Nailed it.
Excellent. All right. Princely Uman Mielen. A really good player. At 47, I pretty consistently see him around there, so that's believable. Omar Norman Lott, defensive tackle from Tennessee at 78. I've taken him at that spot a few times. Also, former Sun Devil, transferred to Tennessee. He has limitations, but he is a good player, and I could definitely see that.
But did you see Coleman's tweet that he had about him about that little algo they did for they basically came up with a conversion rate for pass rushing reps for interiors, and he smashed everyone. He was at like 12.5, and the next closest was at like 10.
Oh, that's interesting.
Very effective and efficient pass rusher.
And Princely was also an elite pass rusher on third down. I've seen this stat thrown out there quite a bit. He had one of the highest overall pass rusher win rates in college football last year. So he's very effective. His metrics are great. So he's an intriguing player. Taking a guard in round one, yeah. You can argue it is the right thing to do while also arguing it is unlikely to happen for the Cardinals. Let's see. Torrey Horton as the pick here at 85 is a guy Dana knows most about that we haven't touched on much. Yeah, I don't know that we've seen him in any mocks so far. Slot, Z speed type, really good crisp routes, can adjust to leverage or force cornerbacks into leverage he desires. I like Torrey Horton. I watched for some reason a shocking amount of Colorado State football last year, and Torrey Horton does stand out. So I would like him as well. He's someone I've mocked a couple of times.
He was one of the first evals I did this year, and I do really like him. I don't think he's like, again, he's a lot like Dortch in that he's not overly fast, but very twitchy, and he just catches everything.
Right. Yeah, he's got great hands. Paul G loves Princely Uman Mielen's size. Yeah, great size with the perfect combination of speed and really all the physical attributes that you want out of that position. He's really solid. At 47, I would like him quite a bit. Lance, it's good to have you in here. I'm sorry that you missed us talking about your mock, but as Dad pointed out, it got really good grades. People liked it. So when this recording goes up, once the live stream ends, I hope you will go back and find us talking about yours because I think you'll like what people have to say. It was quite nice. Getting some other comments in here real quick. All right, from Simon She, likes Horton, think he's a good fit, see him similar to Ty Felton. Okay, well that tells me a little bit more about Ty Felton though, so thank you for that. I know a little bit more of the type of player that he is. Dana, I believe you're talking about Torrey Horton here. It's maybe a little bit high for him at 85, maybe, but with some extra picks in here, it looks like I got 8 picks in a trade down. I'd be okay with that. Mac Williams saying that he ran a 4.4 flat coming off a leg injury. Okay. I mean, that's respectable. Princely, 6'4". Yeah, great size. Great player.
I really like Princely when I watched his interview. He's a really well put together guy.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing some of his stats, like I've come way around on that one. I wasn't super high on him when I first started looking into him, but he's a money guy.
Yeah.
From what I can tell.
Agreed. And yeah, from Robert Moore, Lance, you probably are the leader of the mock of the night. Go back and watch that. You will like what we have to say about it, Lance. All right. Let's move on to the next one from our boy Erva. Oh, is this another trade up? It is.
We got a real spicy one.
Yeah, trading up to the New England pick, giving them 16 in our third rounder, and then also a second round next year, a fifth round next year, and a fourth round pick next year. Okay, to go all the way up to 4 to pick Travis Hunter. Okay, Erva, where are you? Are you in here? The trade logic on the mock database is pretty weird. Would have to give up at least another first to realize it. Okay. Also, Erva, while we talk about these players, just type some type of explanation for yourself in here, okay? So Travis Hunter is a player that we've never had the chance to even talk about in these streams because he's going to be nowhere close to the Cardinals pick at 16. And here is my position. Are we ready? Talented football player. I don't know if I should say this out loud. Massively overrated. Hear me out.
So somebody's gonna light you up. I won't.
I'm waiting for it. Travis Hunter won the Heisman and is very well regarded because he's an incredible athlete, and his accomplishments at playing wide receiver and cornerback, being a two-way player in college in 2024, is a massive achievement. I will give him that. Sure. I even support him winning the Heisman because that's a really incredible achievement to do. That being said, he is not number one at either of those positions. He did both of them at a great level, but he is not the number one wide receiver in this draft class, and he is not the true number one cornerback in this draft class. He is at number 4 in that kind of range because he won the Heisman. And the Heisman is a college award for his achievements in college, which were great and wonderful. And he deserves it. He does. But, like Brian Abdallah says, he has massive bust potential because he did split his time in college. He is not the best wide receiver coming out of college, and he's not the best cornerback coming out of college this year. So him going at number 4 blows my mind that that's happening. He's a really talented athlete, and teams are banking on the fact that his insane athleticism will make him elite at one of those positions, and they're going to lock him into one of those positions. He's not going to be a two-way player in the NFL. That doesn't happen anymore. And it seems like he will probably get locked in as a cornerback. But I don't know. At least Chris Young agrees with me. He feels the same way about Travis Hunter. I am not saying he's a bad athlete. I'm not even saying that he won't have a good professional career. But I don't think he'll have a number 4 overall pick career. Because isn't that roughly where we took Patrick Peterson? Top 5. And Patrick Peterson was easily the best cornerback in the class that he was a part of. And Patrick Peterson turned into a multiple all-pro, like 8-time Pro Bowler, minus the last few tail end years of his career and his going crazy and hating us. One of the greats.
Travis, or rather hating Kime, which is fair. I think that's we
totally
can all agree with that.
Totally fair. I just don't see Travis Hunter as having those qualities of turning into one of the greats.
I am going to somewhat agree with you. I'm not going to take it quite as far as I think he could have been either the wide receiver 1 or cornerback 1 had he committed to that and fully developed
100%. Agreed.
But he didn't. You're right. But I also agree with you that he needs to lock in. And he needs to become a master at one of those at the next level before he even thinks about wanting to try and do the other, because he wants to do both. He absolutely wants to. Whether a team's going to actually give him that opportunity is another question. But
not going to happen.
Probably not. But I don't want to say not, because look, if he falls to the Jaguars could just do something stupid because you know what? They're like, it'll sell jerseys. That's about all we've got. So,
it will. And apparently Erva's trolling us, so that's good to know. I just want to see what reactions would be. But Joe's pointing out this isn't the 70s or 80s anymore. And offenses and defenses are very complex and take players sometimes years to fully learn, as we have seen. So it's just not going to happen that you're going to learn an offensive and a defensive scheme that thoroughly to be able to play both at a starter level. And the game, the speed that the modern game goes at, you can't do that to your body. It's not possible. And Dana, I think, also had a point in here that the NFLPA is basically a union, and it probably won't allow him to play that much because you are just asking for your body to be destroyed doing that.
Oh yeah, there's no way he's playing 170 snaps a game again. Like that's just not happening.
Like, we don't even see two sport athletes anymore. Like, and that's a totally different ball game. Totally different. Like,
Guys aren't even allowed to go skiing in the off season.
right, those sort of things are written into their contracts. They can't engage in risky behavior, or they'll lose their guaranteed money and they'll get cut from the team. We've seen it happen. Um, Kyler Murray, it was an incredibly talented baseball player, and physically he probably could manage playing football and baseball because the physical demands of baseball are a lot different than football. Not knocking them as athletes or anything, but like, you're not getting hit by 300-pound men in baseball. So like, physically he could do it, and we've seen great players in the past do it, but that's never happening again. Not with the type of money that's getting thrown at players now. Not when your quarterback's making almost $50 million a year. He is not going anywhere. He is not going to be tearing his ACL sliding into home base. That is not going to happen. So I think that era is just completely over. Red C's talking about character issues with Travis. That I don't know about. He seems like a pretty good guy. I don't know if character is a thing with him. I just think it's a two-way thing. He's just not the best at either. He's a really high level jack of all trades, but he's just not the best at either one. And Joe's agreeing with Dana that there's probably a few packages that you'll throw them out there to like keep a defense on their toes and be like, oh, there's Travis, and you got to account for him. But you couldn't see that happening more than a couple times a game, you know? And Simon has this point that I kind of agree with. He needs to be a two-way player to justify that draft spot, but he's not going to be. That's just not the reality.
I mean, like I said, I think that's very strongly not likely. But then again, you've seen teams do some dumb things in the past, so I don't want to rule it out completely. I just really don't think it should happen. But to say it absolutely won't, I can't. I wish I could, but I can't.
This would be a Raiders type of move. You know, it does feel like a Raiders move. I agree with that. And
100%.
this is basically my point. Hunter's jack of all trades, master of none. And at the next level, when a team does inevitably lock him into one of those positions, he might turn into a master of one of those. He has the just innate talent and athleticism. It's possible. I just, number 4, top 5 pick is so hard to see for him. And yeah, there were some trick things that Patrick Peterson did, but it's not really the same, you know.
And it wasn't every game too. It would just be occasionally from time to time they'd throw it out.
This is good information to have from Dana. The NFLPA does not officially put snap count limits on players, but they probably would put something in motion if he did try and stay on the field both ways. Agreed. Because I don't know the last player who, at least not of the profile of Travis Hunter, that played both ways, that like brought up this sort of controversy. To me, he's by far the most high profile two-way player we've seen in a long time. Happens a lot more in college, but I don't think there's been as much question of, oh, what's he going to be in the NFL for a player in quite a while until Travis.
I think Miles Jack is the most recent one I can think of. And I mean, he wasn't playing linebacker and running back in the NFL. So
yeah, and Hunter does have an upside. He's smart, good football IQ, and really athletic. And he could play both positions. He's just got to lock into one and actually master something.
And honestly, I'd play him at wide receiver. Like I said, I like him at corner because of just some of the
I agree.
He does, but I think he's a better wide receiver.
I agree. Corey agrees with us here. He'll play wide receiver if he's smart. That's where the money is on a second contract. Yeah, if I was him, I would be wanting to be drafted by a team that's going to let me be a wide receiver.
I don't know. Tell that to JC Horn though. He kind of changed the game there this week.
Corners can get paid. They definitely can. And the rest of this draft are all players that we've seen before, I think, except Chamari Dike, wide receiver from Florida, here in the 7th round. Ty Robinson here at 115 is significantly higher than you'll see in a lot of other mocks, but that one feels more realistic to me. He was athletic and agile at the combine. He tested really well. He just didn't have a ton of college production.
It's trying to figure out where some of these guys are going to go. It's just so hard because you just don't know what the teams are going to value, how those, like I said, how those interviews went. So just knowing where's because they're so similar in this range. You could see him
Right.
going that high. You could see him falling. You just don't know.
And good point from Joe that Brett Coleman saying he thinks teams will play him at corner because finding cornerbacks is harder than good wide receivers. Very good point. Yes, it is much harder to find an elite cornerback than it is to find serviceable wide receivers.
And
That's a really good point.
especially in this class too. I mean, I don't think we love either the wide receiver or the cornerback class, but I think the wide receiver class is a little bit deeper.
Yeah, neither one is crazy this year. But I would say Tet McMillan should be the number one wide receiver in this class. And he is because Travis Hunter is mostly being listed as a corner. But, okay. Anyway, we'll move on from that because we're not drafting Travis Hunter. I think I can say that with a fair amount of certainty. So we'll move on to Simon G here, who at 16 we're taking Darius Alexander. Okay, I like it. It's different. Donovan Jackson there at 47, a place I like him quite a bit. Jalen Knoll in the 3rd round, also like that. Moving around in the 4th round, swapping a pick with the Eagles in the 4th, and then picking up a 7th round and picking up a 5th rounder, giving our 7th rounder to Philly. I don't know if Philly will play ball with us in the draft anymore since they tattled on us like little babies. Anyway, Brashard Smith is someone we haven't seen a lot. I think Simon has put in little notes here for us that Donovan Jackson would be a guard instead of tackle, absolutely, and Brashard Smith would be a wide receiver / kick returner more than running back. All right, I don't know too much about SMU football.
That's a kick returner or a wide receiver.
Wide receiver on the left, and then I think kick returner on the right.
Okay, I see. I missed that.
Now, Jaw Joyner, edge from Minnesota. The Cardinals have met with Jaw Joyner, so that's a realistic pick, and also a good spot to kind of take an edge now with Sweat on the team, and then kind of a 5th round flyer again on another cornerback to bring in the team, Denzel Burke from Ohio State. Okay.
I like it. I mean, it's like I said, it's got some names that we've seen, but it's also got some names we haven't. And Denzel Burke is an interesting one. Just I like the upside. He's an Ohio State corner. There's, he didn't produce at the level that everyone kind of expected him. Another one of those guys that you just didn't have the final year in college that you wanted him to, and it's really dropped him. But I could see the upside with him. And in the 7th round, like I said, it's a flyer. It makes sense.
I can too. And you're just throwing him into a room that has kind of guys on the edge right now. Keitrell Clark, we didn't see Elijah Jones play any last year because he's on IR. So you're throwing him into a room of young cornerbacks, and you're kind of just letting them compete against each other, see what the best lineup you can get out of it is. So I don't hate that. Like I see a cornerback somewhere in the draft.
I agree with that.
All right, Simon's letting us know about Brashard Smith. He was a wide receiver transfer, but was also a kick returner and converted to halfback. Okay, interesting. Dana's also backing that up. Brashard Smith, a wide receiver, converted to halfback. Very much follow the blockers, one cut, burn runner. Great receiving out of the backfield. That's a little bit Trey Benson, too. He's a one-cut guy, and he wants to get off to the races. He got so much better near the end of the season. I think Trey Benson improved a lot in 2024. He just didn't get a ton of snaps because James Conner mostly stayed healthy. I think we see something fairly impressive out of Trey Benson next year.
I really liked what I saw down the stretch, just to his decisiveness, which was the biggest
Mm-hmm.
issue that he had when he started, at the beginning of the season, was just bouncing around too much. And he
Yeah.
really figured that out. And then he really started getting better at breaking that first contact. He learned from Connor on that. And he looks so much better at that than I was expecting, because that wasn't really his game at Florida State.
Yeah, you saw a really interesting progression in Benson where he was clearly learning from James Conner about picking his holes and where to go. And once he does and he makes a hard decision on a hole, he's really effective and he's a hard runner. So, also, side note, within one season in Madden, you can turn Trey Benson into like a superstar X Factor so easy. I don't know what it is on how the game is built, but you can turn Trey Benson into a god really, really fast in Madden.
Can't say I've never done that myself.
Yeah, I did that in my very first franchise, and I got rid of Connor after the first season, the 2024 season, and within a year I had Trey Benson into the 90s, and he was a true god. Robert Moore agrees with me. Well, thank you, Robert. I think we see something really great out of Benson this year. And Simon saying he sees Darius Alexander as a floor defensive tackle. I'll still be there if Harmon gets taken early. I don't know if Harmon will go before 16.
Probably not. But I mean, this draft this year is just going to be so weird. We are going to see things that nobody mocked. I
Yeah.
feel very strongly about that.
It's a weird year. Yeah. Yeah. Jaw Joyner had some of the fastest accelerations measured during the combine drills. He'd be an edge to fill special teams, and also has a rapport with the D-line coach. True, our D-line coach, really tough last name, Delataboye, something like that, was the defensive line coach from Minnesota, so he would have a connection there to Jaw Joyner. And I have seen the report that the team met with him, so that is interesting. Here, Delata Boudere, I believe. Yeah, Jaw Joyner
Better
is
than I would
interesting.
have done.
And on Red Sea's Madden rebuild, he had Benson as a 3-peat 2,000-yard rusher. Dude, me too. I'm not joking. I turned Benson into a god. But he got injured all the time too. It was really frustrating. He's a really injury-prone player. I eventually went into the player settings and I just bumped his injury rating up because I was so sick of it. And Robert agrees with you as well, Drew. There will be some weird picks this draft. Yeah, it feels like a weird draft. There's not a ton of, we absolutely know it's going to go dot, 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 and so on from there. Last year was a little bit more like that. Like, it would have been a shock if we didn't take Marv at 4. That was what everyone was thinking was going to happen. This year, the only thing I think I know for sure is Cam Ward is going to go in the top 3 picks. Other than that, I really don't know.
I don't. It's so crazy. Like the Patriots, they could easily go with a Travis Hunter if he's there. They could go with Membo because they love him, because it's a need.
Right.
Like you said, where does Shador go? How does that affect it? At this point, where does Jackson Dart go? Is he actually going to go in the first round like some people are projecting now?
Well, and
It's crazy.
this would be an example of the craziness. Erva checked the NFL mock database, having the Giants picking Kyle McCord 3rd. Bruh, if Kyle McCord goes before Shador Sanders, that's crazy. And Abdul and Hunter falling to 9 and 10. Abdul Carter can't fall that far. That would be my second prediction, is Cam Ward is in the top 3, Abdul Carter's in the top 3. At least top 5.
Yeah, top 5, absolutely. I could see a scenario where he felt. I think very strongly he'll be in the top 3. I think he should be number 1 probably, but Tennessee just decided to do absolutely nothing about their quarterback position, so they're
Right.
kind of in a spot.
Right. When 4 cornerbacks go in round 1, I won't be shocked. I won't either, because every year teams reach for quarterbacks because it's most important position in football, and and you kind of got to take flyers sometimes and hope it works out. Are there 4 quarterbacks this year who deserve to go in the first round? I don't think so, but it won't surprise me though if it happens. It happens nearly every year.
I'll be honest, I probably would take Jackson Dart and Kyle McCord ahead of Shador Sanders, but that's just me, and I'm very
I would
biased.
take Jackson Dart. Yeah, agreed. All right, we'll go on to Karvich here. We've got some moving around. 16, pick up some picks. 22nd pick, 86. All right. So moving down a little bit, you get Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant's going down a little bit. I guess he didn't test as athletic as people expected at his pro day. Is that really that big of a deal? No, I don't think so. Tape is always going to be more important than what you measure on one day out of the year. So Kenneth Grant still has some crazy tape out there. So I'm not too worried about him, but being there around 22 is super reasonable. And if he is and Derek Harmon's gone, I like Kenneth Grant. So I would definitely be down with that pick. And now Nick Scourton's not someone we've seen a lot, especially not 47, because he's usually going in the first round.
Yeah, I don't think he's going in the first round at this point anymore. I think teams are more kind of questioning what he is, because he was the guy that did more different things in that A&M defense, but he is kind of the guy that I think would be the hands down guy that you needed on the line as opposed to more of an edge rusher. So if he's there, I think it would make sense. I don't know how much sense it makes with Kenneth Grant, because like I said, I don't think he's an edge as much as it is a hands down player. But Grant is more of a nose tackle. So I mean, scheme fit, you could make it make sense. I don't love Scourton. I just don't. He was great at Purdue, but then again, I know what happened at A&M, and I know what they kind of did to all of their defensive guys. So
Yeah.
I can't take that too much into consideration.
A&M
He
didn't
was
really
great at
put
Purdue.
any of their front seven in the best position to succeed. So it does skew the data a little bit. Even my maybe irrational dislike of Shamar Stewart, I'm willing to admit, if he had been on a team that knew how to use their defensive line a little bit better than Texas A&M, it could very well be a different story.
He was such a monster.
Athletically, yes, I agree. Dana saying I can't draft a guy who can't move sideways before round 3, referring to Kenneth Grant.
He can't move sideways that great, but he can pick up a fumble and run about 60 yards down the other way and outrun half the defense and score a touchdown.
Yeah, he does still have quite a lot of pros. Jordan Phillips is triggering, but guarantee this is a different one. No need to be scared.
Much different.
And Cards Kingdom also not super high on Grant. He's athletic, but he doesn't have a bunch of pass rush moves. Beside a swim and a power profile is inconsistent. Yeah, there are knocks on Kenneth Grant's game. He's not a perfect player. But I still like him. If he is a pick in the first round in a trade down situation like this, I'm down with it. I have recently flipped Derek Harmon and him in my mind, though. I would rather have Derek Harmon than Kenneth Grant.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah, no. Grant is like, I like Grant. I like his upside, but he is very, very raw. Absolutely. No denying that. It's just at that frame, he's so massive, and the thing, like, even being a rawer prospect, even not having all of the pass rush, teams still respected him even more than Graham and double teaming him like all the time.
Sure. Robert Moore being a little bit harsh on this one, a D plus. It's a little bit of an odd draft, but we hit most of what the team needs. Demetrius Knight talked about main knock on his game is just that he's 25 years old, 25-year-old rookie. That's kind of hard to swallow. We can go ahead and move on to the next one, though, so we can get you guys out at a reasonable time. Red Sea, I believe you were asking in the comments earlier whether or not we've gone over yours or not. No, we have not. Here we are. Red Sea. We've got some moving around with the Lions, moving down to 28 and still getting Walter Nolan. Okay. That is more of a position I'd be okay with. Let's see what happens with Walter Nolan. 16 is a bit tough for me to swallow. But 28, I'm kind of willing to see what happens, and you might get an Aaron Donald out of it. So that's worth it. Trey Amos, cornerback that I don't think we've seen mocked at all to the Cardinals, out of Mississippi. The Old Miss defense was just wicked this year. They have so many players in this draft. Braden Swinson, one of the underrated players of this draft class, for sure. I've seen him on a lot of underrated lists lately, too. Braden Swinson's really interesting. Back-to-back tackles, interesting. Cameron Williams and Jalen Rivers from Miami. Jack Kaiser, linebacker out of Notre Dame. Dante Thornton, wide receiver from Tennessee. Zeke Biggers from Georgia Tech, and Holland Pierce. All right, 3 tackles. That's interesting.
I have to assume at that point you're probably planning on kicking one of them inside. Not sure which one you
Okay,
would want.
he's clarifying Jalen Rivers at guard. All right, all right.
Don't hate that. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not a big Cameron Williams fan. I'm just there. Man, I remember about middle of the season when he was starting to get some first round hype, and he's super raw. Where you get him here is good because it's it's late around. You're not spending high capital on him, and
Yeah.
you can try and develop him. But man, I watched what Jack Sawyer did to him, and I'm not even that big on Jack Sawyer. So
True. Holland Pierce in the 7th, we've seen a few times. It's intriguing to me. He's a mountain of a man, like Dana points out. He would be an intriguing raw guy to see if you can develop. And to Cameron Williams, are we really going to take Texas tackles in back-to-back years?
touche. And we like that Jones.
Seems unlikely. Let's see. Trey Amos. This is from Red Sea, whose mock this is. Trey Amos is another off-zone quarters type of corner, long with very good read and react skills, plus against the run as well. Yeah, Trey Amos is a good cornerback. He's just usually not around that 47 pick, so I haven't seen it very often. But I won't be mad at it. I think he's a better overall cornerback than Maxwell Hairston, who I got in the second round. Hairston is just quicker.
I think Amos is very similar to. I'm gonna mess this one, but it's like Azariah A. Thomas
yeah.
out of yeah, very similar players.
All right, Robert Moore is giving you an A-. He likes the value on the trade down. Nolan at 28. Swinson is a good rusher, a quarterback for sure. Yeah, he's not a great edge setter. That's a big hit on Swinson. But you want a pass rush specialist, Swinson. And it'd be interesting to have him and BJ Ojulari. You got 2 LSU guys that you can have in that role. Erva, anyone been mocking Nick Nash from San Jose State? I have. Have you not paid attention to my nearly 70 mock drafts on Twitter? I've taken Nick Nash quite a few times because I think he could be a fun little project in the slot. All right, let's move on to Justice 21 here. A little bit harder to read. It looks like we got some movement, and we're going to be going through some of these mocks here a little bit quicker because we've gone over most of these players by this point. Actually, all of these players tonight. We got Derek Harmon at 25. Amazing at 25. Sign me up at 25. Gray Zabel at 47. Tuamaloa at 78, Jamari Caldwell 89, Denzel Burke again, Logan Brown, Cody Simon, Dante Thornton. Solid draft, actually.
Getting good value all over the board. I mean, Denzel Burke may be the only questionably high drafted one, but yeah, we know Joe's not going to like this because it breaks the chart, and that breaks the rules.
It does.
Tonight, for sure.
This is a chart night, everyone. I said I'd be good. 8-bit mock draft. I think all of these are like in reasonable positions too. Derek Harmon lasting to 25 is maybe iffy, but it could happen. All it takes is a few players knocking him down. So that's not crazy. Zabel's more likely to go at 47 than in the first. Okay. And Zabel at 47, I'm going to be down with. Zabel in the first, I can't get there.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's a tougher one for me. What I'm hoping is that Seattle actually really does fall in love with him and takes him there. I'm okay with that.
Right, me too. Hear from Brian. What is with the trade ups tonight, guys? Monty's been the GM for 2 years, and uh, technically there was a trade up for Paris Johnson Jr., but that was because of a trade down to get more capital. All right. We're going up to 5 this time, but it's at least for a more realistic player, Mason Graham. Okay. Tate Ratledge, great guard who I love a lot at 78. Josiah Stewart, who I love a lot at 115. Danny Stutzman again, and a Johnny Cornelius in the 7th. That'd be pretty late for him, but that would be interesting. Mason Graham, though. This isn't actually even the first time I've seen a mock trading up to get Mason Graham. And I would like to hear your thoughts on Mason Graham first.
So look, I know I kind of talked about me liking Grant's upside a little bit more than Graham's, but one of the big things that I said is Graham needs that running mate. He needs that guy that's going to demand a lot of the attention. He's got that in Dalvin Tomlinson here, and we've got Darius Robinson, who also demanded a lot of double teams. First game after missing 10 games, he came back and he was getting double teams. It could work here. It really would. I don't know how likely it is that we're trading up for anyone, let alone that high up into the top 5. But I wouldn't hate it if you didn't give up everything. My big thing is I just don't want to be giving up a lot of draft capital next year. As long as you could manage to do that and get away with it, I'd be fine with it. But I just don't think it's
Agreed.
super likely. But I don't hate it.
If we were in a draft type of position with 12 picks like last year, then playing around with moving up to get some really impact guys makes a lot of sense. But with only 6 picks, it does feel unlikely. Robert Moore saying Graham's tape says it all. He's the stud defensive tackle of this draft. He's very good. I will not deny. And I also agree with Erva that the Graham Cracker would be an elite nickname. That would be pretty sick. And Joe's pointing out that when you have a defensive lineman projected to go that high, they usually do hit, which is true. And Robert Moore agrees. This is, are you familiar with Mythic AZ? He's on Twitter. He also has a fairly popular YouTube channel. And he did a draft the other day that involved a trade up for Mason Graham. And it gave up a lot to get there. And if you could look into a crystal ball and you could see Mason Graham is the next Aaron Donald, then of course you do that. But I can't remember exactly what he gave up, but it was multiple firsts to get up to 6, and that's not going to happen. Robert Moore saying, yeah, Mythic is big on Graham, which for good reason. Great player, but for us, realistically, no. Is it fun to think about? Absolutely. Because Mason Graham would be fun on that defensive line, no doubt.
He's got the highest floor of any of them, and that's like I said, saying something, because I think all of them have, all the ones we've talked about, have pretty high floors. So I will absolutely give that to him. I don't know if his ceiling is as high as some of the other guys that we've talked about, but
right,
it very well could be. So I don't want to say it's not.
Yeah, and we talk constantly about how good this defensive line class is. This isn't the year that you would move up for that guy, because you can get value a lot later. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Chris Young here. A lot of players that we've had already: Derek Harmon, Josh Connerly, tackle from Oregon. Jalen Royals is a really fun wide receiver from Utah State. Has that long speed that I think we desperately need. Ashton Gillott from Louisville, edge out of Louisville. Smile Mondon, Georgia. Jake Majors, center from Texas. Interesting. And then probably the most interesting pick on here, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins in the 7th round. Had maybe the most surprisingly athletic testing at the combine of anyone. And he, from Georgia, I think really just gets punished because he was buried so far in a stacked Georgia defense. Like, it's hard to break into that top tier of a Georgia defense that's pretty consistently elite, and he just kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. But he's really interesting for sure.
Yeah, he does not pop off the tape, but he's a solid player. Like I say, he just gets lost in the shuffle. There's just so many good players there.
Right. And Jalen Royals, Utah State wide receiver, really fast guy. He is you draft him because he go "Grrr," and you just let him go down the field, take top off of defense, and let that be his role. But I think that's worth the number 78 pick. All right, let's move on to Cavalier 21. Okay. If anyone's trolling anyone tonight, it's Cavalier 21 with Cam Scatterbu at 16.
And y'all hated my mock.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone apologize to Drew right now. And a tight end in the second round, too. Okay. This might be the first tight end we've seen mocked, period, in all of our streams so far. All right. I see we're getting some pitchforks ready. Yeah, this is a sizzler from Cav. All right. Two tight ends in this draft. Cav is base. All right. So we're just gonna start running 4 tight end sets with Tip Ryman, Trey McBride, Jake Brenningstool, and Corey Deitch. Okay.
And we just signed the European dude or whatever.
Travis Vokalek, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, this is pretty on brand for Cav. All right. Amazing. I hope it goes exactly like this. All right, Sasuke. Looks like an actual real draft this time. At 16, we got Kenneth Grant, a trade in the second round, down 10 spots, which is pretty reasonable, with the Panthers to pick up 2 fifth-round picks. That would be great. Benjamin Morrison, your guy. Chris Paul Jr., linebacker. I like Chris Paul Jr. The only knock on him is his size, his height. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, tackle from Florida. I like it. Vernon Broughton, the defensive lineman from Texas. Definitely not in the same tier as his teammate Alfred Collins, but still a good player. Luke Kandra, guard from Cincinnati. Seth McLaughlin, center from Ohio State, who I think is hurt at the moment. I don't think he's expected to start next season. I think he has a fairly severe injury. And wide receiver Kyron Lacey. So Robert Moore is telling us Chris Paul Jr.'s interview was great, and it was. Yes, he did very well. Chris Paul's a really interesting player.
I was gonna say this draft looks like a real draft all the way up until that Kyron Lacey pick. I think Cavaliers' entire mock may be more likely than just the Kyron Lacey pick at this point right now, but we'll see where it's at.
Kyron Lacey too high at 225.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I don't know if anybody is not aware of that at this time, but there's a lot of very serious off-field stuff going on with Kyron Lacey, and unfortunately, there are people that are no longer with us because of that. So yeah, he's gonna have to get that figured out before anything happens.
And Monty, I don't think will take a player who is in any real type of trouble. Maybe if he does all of his own homework and he thinks that concerns are overblown and great interview and he gets a good feel for someone, sure. But like real trouble, he's not going to be a Cardinal. I think that's pretty much guaranteed.
Yeah, agreed.
And Dana, I agree. I need to look into Vernon Broughton a little bit too because he gets so overshadowed by Alfred Collins. And he was going really late there for a while. You're right. He was very consistently in the 7th round.
I'm pretty sure it's Jace, AC Jace, that's been high on him lately. He's been hyping him up on Twitter. So yeah, I need to look into him more.
Yeah, Erva, this is Chris Paul that cut the lead down to 42 against Mavs. Yeah. I don't know. Jalen Carter's attorney might call Lacey. Yeah. And Jalen Carter's an example, actually, of a really talented football player who's having a good career right now, but would never have been touched by Monty anyway.
No, no, no. And look, people make mistakes, and I totally get that. So I'm not going to sit here and condemn anyone for anything. I'm just saying it's not likely with the track record. Is all.
Yeah. 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 He might need to be calling up Carter's attorney right now. One of the last ones, I think, from Caleb, moving down in the first round to pick 24th, Minnesota, right? Getting Kenneth Grant there at 24. Not mad at that. Carson Schlesinger is the first time we see him tonight, but a player I like a lot around 47 because I think he can be your green dot of the future. Jonas Avenea at 78. Kyle Kennard at 97 for South Carolina. I like him. There's a lot of upside with Kyle Kennard. Like
There is
a lot of potential.
Absolutely. At one point, he was one of my favorite day kind of late second, early third round edges. I've kind of soured on him a little bit. It should leaves a little bit to be desired. Doesn't pop off the screen as much as you'd like or as consistently as you'd like. But when he does, it looks really good.
Right. Xavier Restrepo at 115 would be a steal. I don't think he'll be there. But he would be a fun addition to this team too. Kyle McCord at 152. 4 weeks ago, I was on board with a backup quarterback in this draft. Don't think we need to use a draft pick on that this year now with Jacoby Brissett. But Jaden Blue as a 7th round running back from Texas. All right, I can get down with that. I think the standout to me here is Kyle Kennard. I think he's a really interesting developmental edge guy.
He's probably my favorite on there. Xavier could very well fall to there after the testing today that happened, and just I don't know why people are that surprised by the numbers that he put up. I don't think his tape was ever anything that was like winning with athleticism, but some people seem to be freaking out about it. And Kyle McCord, I really, like I said, I don't think we're going to be drafting a quarterback at all. I wouldn't mind upgrading from two, but Kyle Cord is surprising because I talked a lot of crap about him coming out when he left Ohio State and everything that he did to Marvin Harrison, and he went to Syracuse and shut everybody up and showed him why he was a 5-star recruit. So he is an upgrade over two. It's just not likely to happen.
Yeah, he ran a slow 40 from Restrepo, which isn't a great look, but 140-yard run does not define a football player, and Restrepo's tape is great. He does not play like Tristan Wirfs, so just because he had a bad day and ran slow, I'm not particularly worried about that.
And he had a really good short shuttle too. So
Robert Morris is a good trade value. Grant to 24 is good value. Schlesinger is too high. I disagree. I think 47 is right about where Schlesinger is. Kennard's tape was I'll also disagree a little bit. He's not a perfect complete player, but you're not going to get that in the 4th round anyway. And McCord is interesting after Brissett leaves. Yeah, but if you're going to keep 3 on the roster, you're probably just going to run with what you're already familiar with and keep Murray, Brissett, and Tune, and hopefully praise God and hope to God it never comes down to Tune at that point as your QB3. And then when Brissett leaves, you can look at drafting a quarterback in whatever class that is. So I get it, but I don't think they're going to use a roster spot on that this year. To challenge Tune, sure, but there's so many other needs for this team that challenging QB3, I think, is not a high priority.
Yeah, and that's another. We're probably a year away from that type of luxury pick.
Right. Yeah. If you're making the playoffs and you're contending for division and conference championships every year, feel free. Go ahead and challenge your QB3. But I don't think we're at that spot here. McCord and MHJ reconnection would be interesting. I mean, it would. But did McCord make MHJ or did MHJ make McCord? I think we all kind of know the answer to that. The level of receivers McCord had at Ohio State was incredibly high.
Well, and McCord wasn't even that good at Ohio State. That's the
No,
thing.
he's better at Syracuse. He played great at Syracuse, actually, minus that multiple interception game where he threw 5 interceptions one game.
Yeah,
Rough. Rough. Can't deny that.
but he wasn't even throwing enough balls that could be intercepted at Ohio State, or it could be intercepted 5 times at Ohio State. So
Right.
with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Ibuka on the team.
True. Is this the last one? Let me make sure. No, I think we got one more. Yeah, from Canucks Won't Win. We just got a 3-rounder here from him. We got Kenneth Grant in the first round, Siobhan Revell, cornerback, in the second round, so new name, and then Tate Ratledge in the third round. Okay, so corner in the second round is something I'm on board with, but Trey Amos, Maxwell Harrison, those are the types of names I'd be looking at more than Siobhan Revell.
Oh, I love me some Shaven. He's fun, man. He before the injury, he probably would have been in that conversation for cornerback one. So he would be very much in the Garrett a la Garrett Williams, former, falls because of injury and then winds up being one of the best cornerbacks in the class.
Interesting. Yeah. A player I'm not particularly high on, but I get it. I do. Dana saying he might sneak into the first. I'm not sure that we'll see too many cornerbacks in the first this year. I think it'll be a fairly light cornerback first round. The almighty chart does approve. This does line up pretty well with the chart. The guard waiting till third, fourth round, cornerback in the second, perfect. So good chart. The almighty chart approves of this one from Canucks Won't Win.
I would love for Joe to take it one step deeper with those interior linemen and see how many of those guards ended up having mullets.
Ooh, yeah. If you guys didn't know, a mullet is a key indicator of your future performance as an interior offensive lineman. So we need to take a look into this. We need to dive into the data. It seems that Monty's more willing to take injury risks in round 3. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. He wants as close to a sure pick as he can in the first 2 rounds. And then third and beyond, especially when he has multiple third round picks like we saw last year, he'll play around a little bit because no one expected the Tip Ryman pick last year. That was kind of out of left field. Trey Benson in the third, it wasn't that surprising. Running back, pretty well regarded running back, but Tip Ryman definitely caught me off guard last year.
Now I'm okay, never mind. I'm getting confused here. That happens often. So
Froholt was one of the round 4 interior offensive linemen drafted by New England. Okay, I didn't know that. But it makes sense. Froholt has been the surprise of the past couple years to me. When we added Froholt, I had zero belief in this, and I thought he would just be another turnstile guy at center after the Rodney Hudson thing kind of failed. But man, he's been so solid. He's not Jason Kelsey, but he gets a job done so much you don't have to worry about him, and that's a great thing from a center. Yeah, any O lineman with mullets are a must draft. Agreed. Yeah, if you are a really large 300 plus pound, 6'5 plus guy with a mullet, I want you on my team. I trust you to protect my quarterback.
yes. Especially if you're playing down there in Georgia. Like, oh yeah, sign me
Right. If you also are that from Wisconsin, Nebraska, sign me up. Get on this team immediately. Yeah, I thought Froholt was a bridge center for someone they were going to draft. Yeah, he's become a really mainstay, solid guy in the center of the offensive line, and he doesn't really get hurt. He plays all the snaps. Froholt's been really shocking and a really, really pleasant surprise. Finally, a player that just worked out for us. It was awesome. Last question I think we'll take. Anyone have hope for Elijah Jones? Sure. I mean, we just didn't see anything out of him last year because he got hurt. So this will really be his rookie year. This is first chance for us to really see anything out of him. Yeah, I definitely have hope that he could be an impactful player. And we're looking for the future outside cornerback to get rid of Sean Murphy Bunting. He'll probably be that guy at least at the beginning of next year. But I think next year's last year. He's under contract with us. I can't imagine we bring him back at that age. So we're still looking for Max Melton on one side, I imagine, and then we still need some type of future solution for the other side. So I have faith. He has a great size and great speed, and he was a 3rd-round pick last year, wasn't he? So we took him pretty high. When did we take Elijah Jones?
No, I think it was a little bit later than that, wasn't he?
I can't remember. Feels like we had a ton of 3rd-round picks last year.
Yeah, we had so many. He might have been. Now I can't. Now I'm losing. I lose. Sometimes it all starts blending together because it was Melton was the 2nd rounder, and then Benson and Ryman in the 3rd. But we had like 3 thirds, right? So maybe Jones was the other one. Yeah,
I think he was. Yeah. I definitely think that could happen. But let me see here. Those were all of our mocks for the night, guys. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes to get through 22 mocks, I believe. But we did it. We had some interesting ones, a couple troll ones in there. Sorry for everyone who had to witness Travis Hunter at 4, Mason Graham at 5, and Cam Scadaboo at 16. But we also got a lot of very realistic ones that could definitely happen. So I want you guys all to remember one thing. All hail the chart. Everyone study the chart all week before we get to the next stream on Monday, because we only have 3 of these left. So we have to dig into the chart so we make sure we get the most accurate mocks that we possibly can. Drew, thank you for being here tonight again. You've been an amazing co-host. Let everyone know where they can find you, and if you have any parting words for us.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me again. Love this. It's my favorite segment of the week. So actually getting a chance to participate a little bit more and be more active with it has definitely been a blast. And it's nice to actually have a real setup and again, not have to worry about those technical issues. But if you're interested in following me, check me out on Twitter. That is my main source of social media interaction at AZSportsFan20. Almost forgot my own handle at AZSportsFan20.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being here tonight. You guys know that you can always find me on Twitter at AZCard_Birdseye. You can find my YouTube channel, Bird's Eye View. Hopefully, I'll be getting up some player breakdowns for the draft this week on my channel, so you guys can look for those. Probably be defensive linemen that we'll take a look at. And thank you to everyone who submitted a mock, because it gives us so much to talk about, and it is just a nice, fun little community to have for a couple hours on Monday night, as we are a month away from the draft. So we're not that far away. We're almost there, and then we won't have to speculate anymore, and we'll know what happens. We can actually talk about what the team will look like next year and delusionally get our hopes up all over again. But again, thank you to everyone that was in here. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the night, and we'll see you guys next week.